I mean, this is a scientific wonder. This is unbelievable. Somebody someday is going to win a Nobel Prize for having come up with an app like this. Everything is possible today. Being a Jew was never easier than it is today. You can learn anything and everything you want about Pesach and everything else right by way of the internet. And on the last page, I give you a website that gives you anything and everything you might want to know about the Pesach experience. Okay, we asked the 4 questions. Why these 4 questions? Lots of different interpretations. The one that I like is, the first 2 questions speak about the matzah and maror, making us seem as if we're suffering and insignificant. The last 2 questions have to do about reclining and eating hors d'oeuvres, making us sound very rich and living in freedom. And so the child is saying, which is it, Dad? Are we Jews living high or living low? Are we free or are we persecuted? And at different times in our history, there have been different answers that could be given to that question. We then continue on. We tell the story now of the experience, beginning with the Avadim Hayinu on page 19. Avadim Hayinu, we were slaves in Egypt. There are 2 differences of opinion of how we tell the story. Everybody agrees that we begin with the bad news and end with the good news. But when we speak about our being enslaved, the debate is, should we discuss our physical enslavement or our spiritual enslavement? We begin with talking about our physical enslavement. We were slaves in the land of Egypt. Had we not been redeemed, we would still be slaves in Egypt. And it ends with the words, and the more we tell the story, the more to be applauded you are. And then we continue on page 21 was Avadim Hayinu. Then we have on page 24, telling a story of how the rabbis would stay up all night, telling the experience of, relating the story of the Exodus to show how much time could be spent telling the story. There is a theory that these 5 rabbis who were meeting in Bnei Brak were in fact participating in planning the revolt, the Bar Kokhba revolt against the Romans. Rabbi Akiva was one of those who felt that Bar Kokhba perhaps was the Messiah, and so the rabbis threw their support to Rabbi Akiva, to Bar Kokhba, and unfortunately, it only led to a total abandonment of the land of Israel, which we suffered for close to 2,000 years. We praise God. Baruch Hamakom Baruch Hu. God is to be praised, and we use the word here, Baruch, 4 times. God is praised 4 times. You know that the number 4 is big stuff in the Pesach Haggadah. 4 cups of wine. 4 questions. What other 4s do we have? 4 children. There are 4 different mitzvot, 2 rabbinic and 2 biblical, connected with Pesach. But we're going to get to one of the explanations for the 4, because there are 4 languages of redemption. But another explanation is that 4 represents our mothers, the 4 mothers that we had. Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, Leah. And we want to remember how grateful we are to the Almighty that we have the Jewish women, because otherwise we'd have to be home taking care of the kids. So we are grateful to the Almighty for the Jewish women, and we are told, in fact, B'schut noshim tzidkaniot niglo avoseinu b'Mitzrayim. It was because of the merit of Jewish women that our forefathers were redeemed from Egypt. One of the things that is said that Jewish women did was, men who had to go out and work all day came home and were so exhausted and so depressed and felt that there was absolutely no hope for the future, said there's no sense in bringing children into this world. And it was the women who fixed themselves up, who made themselves attracted to the men, who encouraged that we perpetuate the Jewish people, and that's why we're all here today. So we do have a lot to be grateful for, and that's one of the explanations for why 4 is so important. And now we come to the 4 children. The smart child, the wicked child, the simple child, and the child who does not know how to ask. And I am going to be speaking on Pesach about the 5th child. And that's the stupid child. But we're going to leave that for Pesach. For now, we're going to focus on the 4 children. Now, there is an endless amount that can be discussed about the 4 children. The explanation that has taken on a lot of meaning in modern times comes from the Lubavitcher Rabbi, and I have it sort of in the notes over here. I also have it in my Haggadah, that the 4 children represent 4 generations of the American Jewish experience. The Chacham was the wise old grandfather who came from Eastern Europe with all of the Jewish traditions and all of Jewish learning, and he was the one dedicated to perpetuating Judaism. And then he gave birth to this American son, and this American son was what makes Sammy run, and he only wanted to make it as an American, and so he rebelled against everything Jewish. And then he had a son. The son that he sent to Hebrew school once a week and gave him minimal Jewish education, and he was the simple son. He has a father who knew nothing, a grandfather with a beard and payas, and he had no idea of how to understand all this. And then came this generation of Jews, and that's the generation that doesn't know what to ask, that had a great-grandfather who they hardly remember, had a great-grandfather who they hardly remember, but there's a nice picture of him, a grandfather who rebelled against Judaism, a father who really doesn't know much, and this child doesn't even know how to ask. And the Lubavitcher Rebbe said the danger is that the next generation will be the 5th child, and the 5th child will be the one who doesn't even come to the Pesach Seder. You represent that transition. I want you to know that. Most all of you sitting at this table represent a major transition in American Jewish history. Because for many of you, your children will know more than you do. And that's a major change. That's turning the pendulum back. That's taking place in this generation. But it's important that we don't make the impression that Judaism is for children. And when you grow up, you don't have to do this stuff anymore. Another very interesting aspect of the 4 children is that the 4 children are really one child, all part of a process. We all start off as the She'eno Yodea Lishol. We don't know beans. We're little kids. We go gaga ge, baba be. Mommy and daddy take care of everything. We don't have to ask for anything. They change the diaper, and we live happily ever after. And then we grow up a little bit, and we turn into the simple child. And we ask simple questions, and we get nice, simple answers. And mommy and daddy said so, and that's it, and we accept it. And then we go into those teen years. And as teen years, we all turn into Rishaim. We are the wicked, rebellious child who rebels against authority. And whatever the parents and teachers say, no, we know better, and we're going to do it differently. And then, hopefully, you grow into being a chacham. You start to realize what's really important in life. And if you don't, then you've had an arrested development. And you stick at that level of being the rebellious one, never becoming the wise one. I happen to like that interpretation because I think it speaks of a lot of people, and it speaks to a lot of people. We then are prepared to start telling more of the story, and we tell the story now from the spiritual perspective. On page 33, Mitchila Uvdei Avodah Zarah. We started off, we were idol worshippers, and then through the Egyptian experience, we came to see the hand of God. And we praise God over here. V'hi she'amdo lavosenu. We stand up, we hold a cup of wine, and we bless God for saving us, because in every generation they come to destroy us. And unfortunately, that is the story of the Jewish people. In every generation, they do come and try to destroy us. My father used to say a beautiful interpretation. It said, in every generation, one rises up to destroy us. That one of the things that has saved us is that our enemies don't join together. Because sometimes we're hated by the right and sometimes we're hated by the left. Sometimes we're accused of being capitalists and sometimes we're accused of being communists. Thank God that all the people that hate us on the right and hate us on the left don't join together as one. But as you know, the threats to the Jewish people are always there. And not only do we have to learn to live with them, but more important, we live through them, and faith in God and having a strong Israeli army is going to keep us alive for eternity. We now continue telling the story, and we tell the story of Lavan. Lavan is considered the most wicked of all because he wanted to destroy the Jewish people. We have this coming on page 41. He wanted to destroy the Jewish people by destroying Jacob. Why is Lavan considered such a horrible enemy, worse than Pharaoh? Because with a Pharaoh, with a Haman, with an Ahmadinejad, we know exactly where they stand. We know they hate us. We know that they wanted to destroy us. Lavan tried to make believe he was our friend. And that's the most dangerous enemy. The one who says, I'm doing this all for your best interests. The name Lavan also means whitey, white. Here, I'm Mr. Whitey, I'm Mr. Clean, I would never do anything to you. But if you read the name Lavan backwards, it becomes Naval. Naval means the despicable one. When you get to see the person for who he really is, then you realize what a danger he is. We start the story of Lavan, and then we come to a part of the Haggadah where most Jews do the same thing. Skip. This becomes a major skip in most homes, and it's understandable in a sense why, because what we do now is we take 4 biblical verses and analyze them. And that doesn't make for the most exciting reading, especially if it's 9:30, the kids have already driven you crazy, your wife is complaining that the food is overdone, and you're not having the greatest time of your life either. Now is just the time when you want to go and explain 4 biblical verses. So let me just tell you, it's 4 very important biblical verses. These were biblical verses that every Jew had to recite, not on Pesach, but on Shavuos when they brought the first fruits to Jerusalem. This was an expression of gratitude to the Almighty for all that He has done for us. And so we analyze these 4 verses because they really do give a very concise story of the Egyptian experience. And then we come to major part of the Haggadah, the 10 plagues. Everybody loves the 10 plagues. Everybody, of course, except for the Egyptians, who weren't too crazy about the 10 plagues. All sorts of things to be said about the 10 plagues. Why these 10 plagues? Why did there have to be 10? Why didn't God just bring this one big one and wipe them out right from the beginning? You can look in every Haggadah and find a different explanation for it. Most of the time we see the 10 plagues related to nature. That this was a response. Pharaoh tried to use nature against the Jews. And God in turn turned nature against them. And whatever way we analyze it, the important lesson that we do try and tell children is we take a drop of the wine out of the Seder, out of the cup of wine, as we mention each one of the plagues. Why do we do that? that our cups should not be filled when God's handiwork is suffering. It's a beautiful thought to that, and it's a very nice tradition. There are lots of things that could be said about it, but it does teach a very important lesson to our children. That we don't rejoice when others suffer. They may have deserved it, but your cup shouldn't be full. And our tradition teaches, bin fol oyevecha al tismach. When your enemy falls, don't rejoice, because someone's child is suffering. And we remember that every time we make mention of the 10 plagues and we take some of the wine out of the cup. How do we take the wine out of the cup? Many of you have the tradition of using a little spoon to take it out. Us Brooklyn guys, Garden House, the finger, absolutely. And you're not supposed to lick your finger after you do it. All right, so a little bit is taken out of the cup, and we then say that Rabbi Yossi used to put these 10 into 3 words, Ditzach, Adash, Ba'achav. Why he did that, I give you some of the explanations on the blue sheet, but there are important lessons to be learned from it. Some even say that these words, Ditzach, Adash, Ba'achav, which is a mnemonic for the 10 plagues, was on the staff that Moses used when he confronted Pharaoh. We then, according to Maimonides, we should be getting ready to eat. Because everything that follows talks about what happened after the Exodus, what happened at the crossing of the Red Sea, and we sing Dayenu. And according to Maimonides, this night we should only focus on the Exodus. But we do have the tradition of doing some extra prayers here where we speak of the different plagues that were brought on the Egyptians as we cross the Red Sea. And then we come to the song that has made Jews famous since time immemorial, Dayenu. Dayenu means enough. Dayenu is a very interesting song. It has 15 stages to it. 15 is a very special number in Judaism. In the temple there were 15 steps that the Levites used to walk up to. God's name, the first 2 letters, is Yud Hey, which equals the number 15. Many of our praises to God have the number of 15. The names Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov have 15 letters in them, I think, if somebody will count. But the priestly blessing has 15 words. Lots of 15s in Judaism, so does Dayenu. An interesting aspect of the Dayenu is that an early Christian writer named Melito of Sardis has a very, very similar song. He's writing in the 1st, 2nd century. But his song reads a little bit differently. His is a song which is sort of putting a knock on the Jews, and if I had my glasses, I would read it to you. You have it all in front of you. Israel, the ungrateful, how much did you value the 10 plagues? How much did you value the nightly pillar? How much did you value the giving